Experience work interactions in a different and refreshing light. This is the Leader in You podcast, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about. We bring the science of attachment and emotional connection with insight from the last 20 years to share how you can overcome conflict issues at work and build strong team relationships, as well as the connected culture.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Leader in You podcast. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Polina, and I co-host this podcast with the amazing Dr. Lola Gershfeld.
Hi, Polina. So nice to be here.
Yay! I feel like we get so excited about doing these podcasts. Actually, I even had some saved topics on my phone this week because you always have such great ideas. But now I'm reading all these articles about the effects of your process and conflicts and how it affects companies. So we have a very exciting topic today. We are going to discuss the analysis of a company that took the TESA, which is the Team Emotional Safety Assessment, prior to training and the results after the training. And then we want to talk about what we saw and the importance. It's actually really incredible to see the difference in the analysis of the tests and how that's impacted the team, and the company. So let's get to it. I think a little bit background. First of all, maybe we can share what's important about taking the report, the assessment, if people are not aware of what that is.
The Team Emotional Safety Assessment assesses 24 capabilities on creating that safety within the team. So it looks at how you interact with your coworkers and then how you interact with your manager, because these groups of people are the most important to you in creating that safety for you, to know that you can reach through them and they will respond to you, to know that you're not alone in dealing with stress and vulnerabilities, that you won't be rejected or looked at somehow, weak or pathetic when you have fears of yourself or fears of your capabilities, or mistakes that you make. We all make mistakes when we work. So what this assessment provides is it looks at the top capabilities, the highest capabilities, the lowest, and then it looks at the gap. Where is the team in terms of emotional safety and where they should be at the target scores. So this particular company, they had 21 people who took the pre-training assessment, and the same 21 people took the post-training assessment. And so the training took place, sometime, and then 6 months later, they did the post-training. And during that 6 months, they learned the emotional connection process. They learned about their triggers and raw spots and emotions. They learned how to repair relationships, how to talk about emotions in a safe and professional way. They also learned how to talk about conflicts and resolve and repair those conflicts. So they had a lot of training, and they also had the follow-up sessions, and they had practice. Basically, this is an experiential process, and people have to practice in order to get better at knowing how to guide and deal with emotions in the workplace.
And I just want to add that if you're not familiar with the EMC process, we do a training, and Dr. Lola created and developed this assessment that is important for us to measure the effectiveness of the training and how it actually gets implemented into the workplace, into the team, and into the environment. So this is what we're talking about, is everybody who does the training with us, whether it's over Zoom, in person, or the master class or the course, they get this opportunity to take the assessment. And of course, it's almost like, you are going to want to take it because then you can actually see your improvement. And also, if you implement this training into your team, you can see what happens to the team throughout the course and also the results of it and the effects of the training on the team.
Yeah,
So,
it's very rewarding because as people use the process and get to know themselves better and to know
mhm.
each other, and their relationships get stronger because of that,
Yeah,
because they know how to guide these conversations in a safe way. What does it mean to be accessible, responsive, and engaged with each other? So everything becomes a lot clearer for them. What is it that we all need to feel safe and supported?
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go
So this
over.
particular team, when what we saw in our analysis, they have really increased in their self-awareness. They increased also in restructuring patterns, so they learned how to improve and get out of their negative cycle, so they can de-escalate when there's a disconnection. They can catch moments when they sense that there's a disconnection, and they
Mm,
also increased in connection growth. So that means that they can nurture the relationship. They can become more equipped to know what is it that my team needs on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, so they feel cared for. They feel like they matter to me, and vice versa. The manager needs to know that too. So the highest improvement was in self-awareness. And I was a little bit blown away because that's such an important capability to have in terms of self-awareness. And Daniel Goleman talks about four quadrants. So self-awareness is number one, then social awareness, then self-management, and then relationship management. And so self-awareness was a 13% increase. So people can be more emotionally attuned when they're talking to each other. They have more engagement and understanding, and they reduce the friction between people.
and also to add that if you have not yet taken the assessment and you have not yet signed up for our course, you can actually take the assessment prior to signing up for the course. And all of this is actually shown in your account profile on the website. So if you're a manager or you're a team leader or your HR supervisor and you're having your entire team do this assessment, you can actually look into the back office of the account and you can see all of these graphs that will show the increase in the capabilities that we are wanting to improve with the team and also which category they fall in. And this is what's so amazing about the assessment. There's three different categories that are that there's a focus around for this assessment. And then each of those categories have the capabilities. And in those capabilities, that's where you'll see the percentage and the graph of what needs improvement, where is the improvement after the training, and then where do people land in the graph prior to the training, and then shows the change after the training. So what Dr. Lola is talking about, which is self-awareness, that's one of the capabilities that we work on. And of course, I think with anything, self-awareness is so important. Anytime we want to create a change in something, right? And this is what's interesting about this process. So we are not a process focused around changing behavior. We're not a process focused around pointing out what people are doing wrong, in the team or where people are making mistakes or where they are failing. We are a process focused on understanding the emotions underneath an action that takes place and emotions that happen in a conflict that takes place. So once we work on that connection, that deep connection, that deep emotional connection, because that will intrinsically inside us want to make that change, that team members, that managers, that HR departments, the CEO, the board directors, that's what they're looking for. They want that change. But we can't actually force people to do that and require people to do that unless we understand that emotional connection piece. So this is what's really interesting about the assessment, right? We're going to show you your capabilities. Like, hey, the self-awareness improved so much, especially in this example. And that is like number one to bringing attention to where is the negative cycle? What happens in the cycle? What happens in the conflicts? How can we shift and change those patterns? And then we can work on those using those tools to create that attachment, that safe emotional connection, so that intrinsically people are motivated to change.
Exactly. I mean,
Right?
I've done some research on self-awareness and the benefits that comes with
Mhm.
self-awareness. And for example, Cornell University research found that among 72 senior executives, high self-awareness was the strongest predictor of overall success, even
Mm,
more than technical skills or IQ. So definitely people with strong self-awareness have a higher profitability and engagement rate. I was at a meeting and and one person from the HR department, she said, "Oh, I don't know how to measure soft skills for people. I'm
mhm,
trying to understand." Well, it's hard to measure soft skills if you don't know what you're looking for, right? If you're
mhm,
looking, like you say, for behavior change, you cannot really tell people to change behavior with soft skills. It has to come intrinsically motivated. And when
mhm,
people feel safe, actually, they start to behave in their normal way, and those bad behaviors diminish when people do feel safe. Another interesting study that shows that when people have high emotional self-awareness, 40% fewer conflict escalations happen because
mhm,
now they can name emotions, they can regulate emotions, they can tune to each other, and they can slow things down. And
mhm.
even like being present, being emotionally present is so difficult for people because emotions are contagious and people start to respond or react or give suggestions and get people worked up. And that doesn't really help people. So in the process of learning about emotional connection, people start to understand how to hold that space.
Yeah. And I think for those of you who are listening that have not yet taken the training and maybe want to have an idea, well, what do I do? I would like to increase that self-awareness and I would like to, understand what is happening with me and also what is happening with my team. Number one is we strongly recommend you take the assessment to really identify what your strengths are and what are the capabilities that you need assistance with and support on. And also, of course, we recommend to take the course, but if you cannot do that at the moment, the very first step we recommend is to use the form. Use the form because the EMC form, which is an incredible tool, and that one is very easily accessible. You can get the whole book, you can get the practice journal, you can get the entire pamphlet, you can get the whole toolkit. And that will give you insight to what happens to you when you get triggered, how to identify your feelings, your raw spots, how to express them, how to understand how the cycle works. So that when you do get into a conflict, we typically turn and point fingers and blame other people, you can turn and ask yourself, what was happening with me? Oh, like let's be curious about what goes on with me when I get into conflict. And I see that too with, the team that I work with. And I'm certain that Dr. Lola has seen it in so many instances with the teams that she works with. It is so imperative that we stay curious, right? When we get that self-awareness, when we can just tune in to understanding that it's nobody's fault. this is the negative cycle, we can stay curious. And that curiosity will help us lead to learning more about ourselves and learning about our team and all the people in our life.
I love what you're saying, staying curious, because I think it works both ways. Staying curious about yourself, like you said,
Yeah.
what's going on
Hmm.
with me in that moment of stress,
Right.
or in the moment when you can't communicate, or you're getting stuck, or you're not, the team is not moving forward as you would like, or you're not moving forward. What's happening with you? And then stay curious what's going on with other people around you.
Hmm.
Like I was doing a reconnection session, and I love that you mentioned the EMC reconnection form because it always helps me to stay balanced in the
Hmm.
moment when one person may be shutting down or the other person is talking a lot. You just it helps you to stay focused on what is it that you're trying to say. You're not trying to agree with one person or disagree with the other person or prove them wrong. You're really trying to tune into that emotional channel, tune into the emotions that are either blocking the person to engage or letting them being so forceful in their communication. So it's always the emotion that drives us to action. Emotion comes from the Latin word immovere, and it moves us. So it's always the emotion. So the reconnection forum, it's like saves me. It's always keeps me on my feet. It never lets me down. It always keeps me focused. And
That's
also,
so
it
good.
increases that self awareness. When you do it
Yes.
over and over and over and over again, that reconnection form, you start to learn about yourself. You start to see the raw spots. I mean, one of the teams I worked with, they already know their raw spots by memory. So it's easy for them to articulate it, to recognize, and to feel safe to share it with other people. Because if you don't get practice, it's hard to
Hmm.
dance with each other when you have to perform right on stage.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think this is so good to leading us into just sharing. Dr. Lola and I recently had this session with a client or a team member who was really struggling to feel safe to open up what was going on with him. And I think that is so common. One of the most common things we hear is, how do you, like, what if someone refuses? What if someone says, no, I don't want to talk about it? What if someone says, like, okay, that's too personal, or, whatever. That distant, we already know that someone who doesn't feel safe enough, that means they're disengaged. That means that they maybe even have had trouble expressing themselves, like, in their personal or professional life prior to the situation that they're currently in. And that could come along with them, if they're, now working in this new place, or if they're in a new team environment. And so they don't feel safe. And that is very, very common. It's very common that we see that. One of the things that we do, this is why self-awareness is so important, because when we don't recognize, if we do get triggered and we tend to shut down, disengage, withdraw, then we can't actually notice that this is not an effective way to connect with the team members, right? So in a sense, that self-awareness, when a lot of people that we work with say, we didn't think we had an issue, we thought we were connected, we didn't even know there was such a thing as emotional safety in a team, we were not aware that something like this even existed, to then see the effects of the withdrawing to the team, and then to know what it's like to come out of that, or to feel that connection. This is where self-awareness also plays such an important role. It's like most of the time we're not even recognizing our protective behaviors, or the way that we're responding, or the way that we are, I would say, reacting, because I think that's also very common, is people reacting to conflicts in a way that's not effective. So I think there's that educational aspect, right? You become self-aware and you're like, oh, the light bulb comes on. Wow, I didn't know that's what was going on. But then there's also that self-awareness piece that's like, oh, I didn't know that was going on. And I didn't know that's what I do to protect myself. Oh, and I didn't know that's what I do to cope with the feelings when I don't know how to process them or express them. Like, oh, I didn't know. So once you start to build that self-awareness, what happens in the moment that we get disconnected or we get into a conflict, like after having that intense session with that client, now all of a sudden, like, oh wow, I didn't even realize how shut down and withdrawn I become when I get triggered and when I get into conflict. So the next time that comes around and that experience comes around, because it does happen, there's still conflicts that occur. It can be like a light bulb go on in that moment. That's why practicing this over and over again is so important. Like, oh, here it is. It's coming again. I want to withdraw, that sort of thing.
Yes. That exercise helps us to increase the confidence in us to say it's okay to feel this way and to have the other person respond to us. So we almost allowing the other person to be there for us in that moment. And then that their reassurance helps us to feel more secure with us. So we can also know what is it that we need
Yeah.
in that moment? What is it that we are longing for in that moment? Because when we get triggered and we have this music start to play, that message, we're not good enough, or the other person doesn't
Mhm.
care about us, that misinterpretation of their response keeps us stuck. And
Mhm.
it creates all kinds of different music. So when we have an opportunity to go through the form and understand ourselves better, number one, we become clear on what is it we need. Number two, we can
Yeah.
accept the other people's support. Number three, we get emotional balance. We regain our emotional
Mhm.
balance so we can move forward, we can grow, we can be open to the experience. And number four, I think we become more engaged. Like you said, when we shut down, we cut off our social engagement support system. And
Yeah.
it is relieving for a moment, but it becomes our prison.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we feel so isolated and alone in those moments, and we just don't know how to get out of that. We need somebody
Yeah.
else to come and reach for us and get us out of that place. So it's good.
Mhm.
It's that self-awareness is critical, and that emotional, the EMC connection form actually is a roadmap on how you can increase your self-awareness. So these results are really, really incredible. I feel like if each person like influences 100 people, right, in
Mhm.
their company, a 13% increase in self-awareness can really cascade to 2100 people, because you have 21 people, each person influences 100 people. You have a whole bunch of people that
Yeah.
can be impacted by this improved self-awareness.
Definitely. I love this.
So I hope this will be an interesting and actually just equate to the dollar sign, right? To the dollars that organizations can save and the return on investment that they have on teaching people the emotional connection, or teaching people about emotions, how to repair relationships, especially relationships. These are the key for our safety. Is think about the 3 hours per week that people waste on workplace conflict. By
Mm.
improving the self-awareness, by improving it just 10 to 15%, this was a research that was done. People improve by 1.5 hours per week less on workplace conflict, right? So they spend less time on workplace conflict per week.
By
And
an hour and a half.
right, exactly, and by
Yeah.
half, exactly. So
Hmm.
if you if you calculate this, remember we did this calculation at the AIDS
Hmm.
conference. So you have three
Well, one
hours
and a half hours by 52 weeks is 78.
times this the $50 or $100 you pay per your. So if you
Yeah.
have 100 people,
$50 is 3,900 per manager.
yeah, and you
And
have 10
that's at
managers.
$50. if that's at $50.
Okay, so you have $50,000 improvement or reduction in waste by teaching people on how to regulate their emotions, understand their emotions,
Yeah.
how to repair relations, because the time is wasted on conflict goes down. So this is
Yeah.
really impressive, and I think knowing yourself and how to regulate your emotions, how to repair relationships is really
Hmm.
key in creating that connected culture.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for listening. And if you're watching us, then you can go straight to the website, emcleaders.com, for more information. You can take the assessment right from that website. And we are so grateful for you. Remember, if you are not watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to us on Spotify. I actually just found out my 12-year-old, Micah, has been listening to our podcast. So he's got it saved on his list on his Spotify account. As always, we're grateful for you. We appreciate your listening. We see that you guys are really enjoying these podcasts that we're doing together. Yeah, if you have any issues that are going on with your workplace and you need support in your workplace conflicts, you can always contact us. You can email us directly at lola@emcleaders.com or polina@emcleaders.com to get into contact with us. You can also find us on social media, on Instagram. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on LinkedIn. And we will see you guys next week.
And you can find us at the ATD conference that is coming up in Houston.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be so fun. That one's happening in less than 2 weeks.
Cool. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you there and continuing our podcast there as well. Thank you,
Bye.
Polina. Bye. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you, everyone, for listening. It's a joy to share these podcasts with you. Be sure to check out our previous podcasts and subscribe to join us at our next podcast of The Leader in You, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about. Until then, be well and be focused on your relationships. We'll see you soon.